It was early morning in New York, the sky still gray with the last of the night. I stepped outside with a bag of trash, my slippers soaking on the cold pavement. That was when I saw it, something half buried in the open dumpster, its edges torn, the cover soft with use. A notebook. First I meant to leave it, but the handwriting on the first page stopped me. The loops and slants were familiar. My granddaughter Lily's. I opened it with trembling hands. The words inside cut straight through me. Today, he yelled again, and then. The rest was worse. Cold, flat descriptions of bruises, the way she hid her arms at school, her fear of the night. The entries hinted at blows, at threats, at silence. Page after page, my Lily had written down her pain as if no one in the world could hear her. My breath left me. My knees buckled against the steel of the dumpster. I had raised my son with love, worked nights, fed him, clothed him, prayed for him. And here in my hands was the possibility that he had become a cruel father. The phone rang. The sound split the morning quiet like glass breaking. I answered. His voice came bright, cheerful, careless. "Mom, we are making Sunday dinner. Bring your pie. The kids can't wait to see you." I looked down at the words on the page again. The bruises. The fear. His tone was sunshine, but what I held was shadow. The two could not exist together. Yet they did, and I stood frozen between them. I set the diary on the kitchen table and sat staring at it. The house around me was quiet, too quiet. My husband had been gone for more than 20 years. Since then, every choice I made was to raise our son well. I worked nights as a nurse, walked home in the early mornings with my shoes worn thin, and told myself it was all for him. I remember paying his tuition after my shift, waiting in line with eyes stinging from fatigue. I remember covering his rent one winter when he said he was short. I remember his words when he grew older. "You interfere too much, Mom." Still, I sent the money, still I believed the sacrifice would shape him into a kind man. Now the diary lay open before me. Lily's words were steady, almost too steady for a child. She described bruises she tried to hide at school, nights she feared her father's voice, the sound of doors slamming. One page noted the time, 2:13 in the morning, when she lay awake listening. I tried to call an old friend, but the number was disconnected. Another had moved away. People drift. What remains is a house that once held voices and now carries only the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of pipes. I thought back to Christmas Eve. Lily had worn a sweater with a fox on it, sleeves tugged low over her wrists. I had thought she was cold. I gave her cocoa, and she smiled without meeting my eyes. My son had come late, left early, carrying cookies his wife did not want. I told myself families go through seasons. I told myself spring would be better. The house answered me with silence. I took a small notebook from the drawer. The one I use for important notes, never feelings. I wrote the date, the time I found the diary, the line about the bruises. My hand was steady, as if I were charting for a patient. Then I slipped the diary into a freezer bag and pressed it shut. I hid it in the crisper drawer behind the onions. I could not say why. Perhaps because evidence should be kept safe. Perhaps because the vegetables were the only things that still grew here. I folded my hands on the table and let the silence remain. It pressed in on me, not as an enemy this time, but as a witness. 2 days later, he came to me in person. My son. He knocked once, then let himself in, as if this house still belonged to him. He set his coat over the chair and smiled with that old gentleness he used when he wanted to soften a blow. "Mom," he said, lowering his voice, "I heard you found Lily's notebook." I did not answer. The diary was hidden now, safe where no one could reach it. He continued, his tone almost playful. "Come on. You know how teenagers are. They live in their imagination. Lily loves drama." The words hung in the air. I kept my eyes on his face. He did not look embarrassed, not even nervous. He looked calm, rehearsed. "She writes these things," he said, "because she wants attention. That's all. You cannot take it seriously. It will only hurt the family." He leaned forward across the table. His voice dropped. "Do me a favor, Mom. Throw it away. Don't let outsiders see what she scribbles. Don't air the family's dirty laundry. We need peace." Peace. That was the word he used. Not truth. Not help. Peace. I folded my hands in my lap and said nothing. Silence unsettled him more than anger would have. He shifted in his chair, then added quickly, "You know Lily loves you. But you could damage her future if you keep pushing this. You don't want that, do you?" His eyes narrowed just slightly. I had seen that look before, when he was a boy, cornered in a lie about homework or broken glass. He had learned how to turn the blame outward. After he left, the house felt heavier than before. The next day the phone rang again. It was the psychologist who had known our family for years, a woman I had once trusted. Her tone was smooth, almost sympathetic. "Grace, I understand you're worried about Lily. But adolescents often confuse emotions with facts. Sometimes they dramatize. It's very important not to overreact." "I did not overreact," I said flatly. "I read what she wrote." She hesitated, then pressed on. "If you make official reports, you could create real problems. Authorities might decide you're misinterpreting, even unstable. Please think carefully before you take further steps." Her words were calm, but the message was sharp: silence. The following evening, the pastor visited. He carried his Bible under his arm, his tone low and practiced. He sat across from me as if on sacred business. "Family is sacred, Sister Grace. Unity is what God blesses. Division destroys. Be careful not to destroy what you've built all these years." His eyes searched mine, waiting for a nod. I gave none. He spoke on, using words like forgiveness, patience, and harmony. Yet beneath them I heard the same command as before: do nothing. They came one after another, my son, the psychologist, the pastor, all with the same plea, the same pressure. Their voices different, their roles different, but their demand identical. The enemy had returned, not in rage but in calmness, in gentleness, in persuasion. When the door closed that night, I sat alone at the kitchen table. The diary lay hidden in its place, but I could see Lily's handwriting in my mind. Careful lines. Bruises described in simple words. Fear of night, written without adornment. I took her photograph from the shelf. A girl smiling, eyes bright, but behind that brightness was something else. Something I had failed to see. The silence of the house became unbearable. Pressed against me, but then it shifted into something different. A vow. I whispered to the empty room, steady and low. "I will not let them break her." That night I sat at the kitchen table with the lights low and the diary before me. The clock did not matter. The house held its breath. I opened to the page where she wrote about the bruise shaped like a hinge and the sound of doors in the dark. Her handwriting was small and careful, as if each letter could shield her. I ran a fingertip over the paper and felt nothing but grain, yet it felt like touching a wound. I set her school photo beside the diary. Lily in a simple sweater, chin tilted, a brave smile that did not reach her eyes. I watched that smile until the silence turned solid. The phone lay face down. If it rang, I would not move. I took out my small notebook, the one for facts, not feelings, and wrote a single line. "I will not let them break her." I underlined it once. The line steadied me more than any prayer I could form. I made a copy of 2 pages from the diary on my old printer. The machine clicked and stuttered like it wanted to warn me. I folded the copies and held a match to their corners over the sink. The flame took slowly, then climbed. Paper bent, darkened, vanished. Smoke curled and disappeared into the night air. I watched until the last ember died. Fear is fuel if you keep it. I had fed mine to fire. The original I wrapped in a tea towel and slipped into the place no one would think to look, behind winter blankets in the hall closet. I pressed the door shut and stood there with my palm on the wood. Hiding was not surrender. It was protection. I would not move in panic. I would move in order. At the table again, I laid out what must follow. No speeches. No pleading. Facts first, then action. I wrote the steps as if charting a treatment plan. Call the proper office. Preserve what I could not hold in my hands. Tell no one who had already asked me to be quiet. The pastor's words floated back. Unity, forgiveness, harmony, soft cloth pressed over a mouth. The psychologist's tone measured, soothing. Another cloth, another hand. My son's calm voice, peace, yet nothing peaceful lived in those pages. A new sentence formed in me, clean as a blade. My money is off the table. No more funding visits that ended with silence. No more gifts to buy approval. No more paying for the privilege of being ignored. Love is not money. If they wanted a purse, they would not find it here. I turned off the lamp and let the room rest in the street's faint glow. The refrigerator hummed. Pipes ticked. I breathed in sets of four the way I taught anxious patients long ago. My hands stopped shaking. Before bed, I opened the freezer and slid a small plastic bag behind the onions. A second safeguard dates a brief summary, the name of the person I would call. Cold holds its shape. I wanted this decision to hold its shape too. In the hallway mirror, I saw a woman with gray hair and steady eyes. I did not look brave. I looked decided. There is a difference. Brave waits for a charge. Decided opens the door and steps through. I went back to Lily's photograph and set it upright again. Sleep, I told the room, though I meant it for her and for me. Then I spoke the vow out loud because saying it made it real. I will not let them break her. When I lay down, the bed felt unfamiliar, like a place I had left and returned to. I closed my eyes and let the dark be only dark, not a hiding place for noise. Morning would come. Phones would ring. Opinions would arrive dressed as care. I would answer none of them. I had already answered the only question that mattered. I slept. The morning after my vow, I boiled water for tea and laid the receiver on the table. I looked at the number written in my small notebook. Social services. My finger hovered, then pressed. A woman answered with a steady voice. This is Grace Miller, I said. I have reason to believe my granddaughter is not safe in her home. She left written accounts of bruises and threats. She asked for details. I gave her Lily's full name, my son's address, the dates I had read in the diary. I read word for word one of the lines Lily had written. My voice did not rise or shake. It came out flat, like I was charting symptoms on a hospital form. Thank you for reporting, ma'am, she said. We will review this. Please keep the original material safe. When I hung up, the house felt lighter for a moment, as if air had finally moved. But the relief did not last. By evening, the phone rang again. My son. His voice no longer soft, no longer pretending. You called them, he said. No question. A statement. His tone was low, dangerous. Do you understand what you've done? I reported what I read, I answered. You betrayed the family. Do you want to lose your right to see Lily? Because that's where this is going. I sat at the table, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the steam rising from my untouched tea. What I did was my duty, I said. Nothing more. He drew in a breath, sharp through the line. You are tearing us apart. You are making Lily suffer more by dragging strangers into this. I spoke the sentence I had prepared. I am not the one who left bruises on a child's arm. There was silence. Then the line went dead. Not long after, the psychologist called. Her voice carried false concern. Grace, I've been told you made a report. Please reconsider. These things can easily be misinterpreted. Investigators might question your state of mind. They might even recommend a mental health check. I listened, let her finish, then answered. My mind is clear. I gave facts, not feelings. Her tone sharpened beneath its polish. Be careful. You could lose more than you imagine. The next day, the pastor left a message on my machine. His voice slow, waited. Sister Grace, I must warn you. Judgment is a grave sin. Families are meant to forgive and to endure. Do not let pride bring destruction. One after another they pressed down, my son, the psychologist, the pastor, each one using different words, yet all circling the same command. Stay silent. That night I walked through the house with the lights off. The rooms glowed faintly from the street. The silence pressed against me but did not crush me. It steadied me. I touched the closet door where the diary lay hidden. My hand rested there as if on a patient's shoulder. I thought of all the years I had carried weight for this family. Tuition bills, winter coats, rent money, grocery bags, Christmas gifts. I had said yes each time, telling myself that sacrifice would buy closeness. Instead, it bought expectation. Each gift turned into a demand. Each demand into silence. Now the same pattern repeated, but sharper. My son spoke of peace but meant obedience. The psychologist spoke of concern but meant discredit. The pastor spoke of faith but meant submission. I sat at the kitchen table again and wrote a single line in my notebook. My money is off the table. It was not anger that wrote it. It was clarity. They could take my name, twist my reputation, call me confused. But they would not touch my savings, my retirement, or my silence. No more financing the very hand that hurt the child I loved. The phone rang again. I let it ring. The machine clicked. My son's voice, sharper now. Mom, you have one chance to fix this. Retract what you said. Tell them you misunderstood. Otherwise, Lily will be kept from you. We will make sure of it. I picked up, not to argue but to speak one fact. I made the report. It will stand. Goodbye. I hung up. My hands did not shake. The threats continued, voicemails, letters, even a visit from the psychologist at my doorstep. She smiled too sweetly, papers in her hand. Just standard checklists, she said. To make sure you're well. I told her calmly. Leave them in the mailbox. I will review with my own lawyer. Her smile faltered, then froze. She left without another word. Inside, I locked the door and stood in the quiet. Each step they took to silence me only confirmed the truth of what I had seen. A child's words do not bruise paper. They bruise skin. And I had held the evidence in my own hands. The pressure was rising, but so was my resolve. I had charted symptoms my whole life. Now I was charting theirs: denial, persuasion, intimidation. The diagnosis was clear. And I knew pressure means only one thing: something is about to break. I could not sleep. The house kept its low sounds, the refrigerator, the pipes, the street beyond the glass, but my mind stayed open like a door I could not shut. Near midnight I went to the hall closet, reached behind the winter blankets, and brought the diary back to the table. I told myself I would only look once more, then rest. When I opened the back cover, my fingers brushed tape along the binding. A small shape was pressed beneath it. I peeled the tape away and found a flash drive, thin as a thumbnail, wrapped in a scrap of paper. On the paper, in Lily's careful hand, was a single word: proof. I sat very still. Then I moved the old laptop to the center of the table and plugged the drive in. The screen lit a dull blue. A folder opened with simple names. Nothing dramatic, nothing dressed up. Just dates and 2 words: photo or audio. I clicked the first photo. The image filled the screen. An arm close to the lens, skin mottled where fingers had pressed. The next showed a cheek, swollen and shadowed. Another showed the line of a shoulder with marks that did not come from play. There were no filters, no captions. Only flesh and the story it could not hide. I opened an audio file. Night sounds came first. The hum of a heater, a faucet dripping, then voices. His voice sharpened low. A slap like a door shutting. Lily's breath caught tight and small. Then the sound of someone trying not to cry. Another file held clearer words. His threat was plain. The room on my screen felt colder than my kitchen. The last recording was soft. Lily had set the device close, her voice close to it, speaking in a whisper she must have practiced so no one would hear. Daddy said if I told anyone he'd send me away, she said. He said no one would want me. I stopped the file and sat with my hands on the edge of the table, palms flat, as if steadying a gurney on a steep turn. I had carried doubts and fears from the first page of her diary to this moment. Doubt was gone now. Fear had a shape. It had a time and a voice. It had a face I had kissed when he was a boy. I made 2 copies of the contents onto spare drives I kept in a drawer. I labeled them in plain handwriting. One I sealed in an envelope for a lawyer from my hospital days, a woman who had once helped a patient file a protection order and did not waste words. The other I sealed for child protection. I wrote the necessary names and my return address. I did not add a note. The files spoke without help. Before dawn I walked to the corner mailbox with the envelopes under my coat. The street was empty. My breath came in pale clouds. I slid the envelopes in and listened for the metal sound of arrival. I stood a moment longer, coat pulled close, as if I could keep those packets warm with my body. Then I turned back toward home. At the kitchen table, I placed the original drive back in its paper, wrapped it in plastic, and tucked it again behind the onions in the crisper drawer. Cold holds its shape. I wanted the truth to keep the shape Lily gave it. The phone began its morning work. My son first. You are making a fool of yourself, he said. Take it back. No, I said. I will not. He tried the old route. Think of Lily. Think of what you are doing to her. I am thinking of her, I said. That is why I acted. He paused, changed pace. Money, he said. You will not be part of this family if you keep this up. Do not expect help from us when you need it. My money is off the table, I answered. Yours can stay on yours. He hung up. The dial tone sounded like a flat line after a code you cannot call back. The psychologist left a message. She spoke of confusion, of stress, of how memory can play tricks. She offered an evaluation. She said she could come by with forms. I did not call her back. The pastor wrote a short text with a verse about peace. I set the phone face down and made oatmeal. The routine saved the morning from drifting. By afternoon, the lawyer returned my call. I heard papers slide on her desk as she spoke. I reviewed the files, she said. You did the right thing. We will move quickly. What do I do now? I asked. Keep everything safe. Do not engage with anyone who pressures you. If they come to the house, you are not obliged to open the door. If you feel unsafe, call me and the police. Her voice was not soothing. It was structural. It gave the day a frame. I thanked her and hung up. Then I checked the doors. I set Lily's photo upright again on the shelf. I wiped the counter not for cleanliness, but to give my hands work that ended. The next morning, an unmarked envelope slid through my mail slot. Inside was a handwritten letter in my son's script. Mom, stop, it read. You are humiliating us. Lily is dramatic. You are being used. Retract the report. If you want to see the kids again, prove you can be reasonable. I placed the letter in a plastic sleeve and filed it in the same drawer as the copies of the files. Words that try to coerce are also evidence. Around noon, the doorbell rang. When I looked through the peephole, the psychologist stood on my porch with a neutral smile and a clipboard. Grace, may we talk? She called. Just to make sure you are all right. I am all right, I said through the door. I will not be meeting today. She lifted the clipboard slightly. We can clear this up if you sign a few releases. It will reassure everyone. Everyone can wait, I said. Good day. I did not open the door. After a minute, her footsteps receded. I wrote the time and her name in my notebook. Not feelings. Notes. 3 days after I mailed the envelopes, a certified letter arrived from Child Protection. They had opened a case. They requested a statement and listed next steps. The language was careful, free of hope or despair. It matched what I felt, steady ground. Process. The opposite of shouting. I sat down and wrote my statement in short, direct lines, what I found when I found it, what I watched and heard, what I did, whom I informed. I left out the ache. It does not help a child. When I was done, I looked again at Lily's photograph. The smile that had seemed brave now looked like endurance. Endurance is not a virtue when it is demanded by a fist. I slid the statement into their envelope, sealed it, and placed it by the door for the afternoon pickup. Then I made tea. The kettle whistled. The cup warmed my hands. The house stayed quiet but not empty. It felt like a room after a storm, the furniture righted, the windows open. The air changed. Not happiness. Not yet. A clearing. They would push again. I knew that. But the truth had moved from a girl's hidden pages to the hands that could act. It would not be pushed back into silence. The courthouse smelled of dust and old paper. I sat on the hard wooden bench, my hands folded around the small bag at my side. Inside lay the diary, the flash drive, and the notebook where I had written each date in detail. I had brought them all, though the lawyer told me only the digital copies would be required. I needed the weight of the originals near me like anchors. My son and his wife entered with confident strides. Their clothes were pressed, their hair neat. They greeted the bailiff with polite nods, as though they were here on business, not judgment. When their eyes fell on me, their smiles stayed in place but tightened at the edges. The hearing began with formal words and titles. My son's lawyer stood first. He spoke of misunderstanding, of a grandmother too involved, too imaginative. He said Lily was an emotional child who liked to write stories. He said families had conflicts, but that did not mean abuse. I kept my eyes on the judge. Her face did not change. Then my lawyer rose. She clicked the projector on. The first image filled the screen. A close photograph of a bruise across a child's arm. No one spoke. The second image appeared. A cheek swollen, skin shadowed with fresh marks. Murmurs rippled through the room. Next came the audio. At first, the low hum of a house at night. Then his voice, sharp, rising. The sound of a slap, quick and final. Lily's sobbing, muffled. The judge lifted her head. Silence fell heavy. My son's confident posture faltered. His wife gripped her hands together. The last recording played. Lily's whisper carried through the speakers, small but steady. Daddy said if I told anyone he'd send me away. To an orphanage. He said no one would want me. The words hung in the air like smoke that would not clear. The opposing lawyer shuffled papers, trying to form an objection, but his voice cracked. He looked at my son, who avoided his eyes. The judge leaned forward, her tone firm. The evidence presented is clear. Until further review, custody will be transferred to the grandmother. Parental rights are suspended temporarily pending investigation. Her gavel struck once, the sound sharp, final. My son turned toward me then, his face pale, his mouth open as if to speak. But no words came. The masks had fallen, and what remained was empty. I stood when the clerk called my name. Lily was brought in by a caseworker, her small backpack over one shoulder. She saw me and walked quickly, though not quite running. When her hand found mine, I closed my fingers around hers. She did not let go. We walked out of the courthouse together. The steps were wide and cold beneath our shoes. The winter sky was pale, but in that moment it felt like air had returned to our lungs. Neither of us spoke on the ride home. She leaned against the window, watching the city blur past. I kept my eyes forward, both hands on the wheel. The silence between us was not heavy anymore. It was a shelter. When we reached the house, she went straight to the spare room. I heard the soft thud of her backpack on the floor, then quiet again. I did not follow. I let her have her space. I stood in the kitchen, placed the diary back in the cupboard above the stove, and exhaled. The fight was not over, but the truth had been spoken where it could not be erased. That night, as I turned out the lights, I whispered into the quiet. We are safe now. At least for today. And that was enough. Morning came quiet, the kind that makes you notice small sounds, the tick of metal as the stove warms, the faint clap of a cabinet door. I stirred batter while Lily watched the pan. When the edges bubbled, she slid the spatula under and turned the pancake with careful hands. Butter hissed. The smell was simple and good. We ate at the table by the window. She took small bites, then larger ones. No one rushed her. I poured more syrup when she nodded. There were no speeches between us, only the kind of talk that does not ask for answers. Do you think the tulips will open this week? She asked. If the sun keeps its promise, I said. After breakfast, she carried her backpack to the spare room and set her books on the desk. She lined up pencils in a tidy row and taped a small square of paper to the wall. A list of words she wanted to learn to spell without looking. I watched from the doorway and did not step in. This room belonged to her now. She should claim it with her own order. The phone rang twice before noon. I let it ring. The answering machine caught my son's voice, then the pastor's. Their words floated up the stairwell like weather from another season. I did not play the messages back. I have heard enough instructions in a gentle tone to last the rest of my life. I wrote one sentence on the notepad by the sink. My money is off the table. I left it there where sunlight could touch it, not for them but for me. Boundaries need a place to sit, the way bread needs a board. In the afternoon, Lily and I walked to the garden. The soil was dark and soft from last night's rain. We knelt on the stones, our jeans picking up damp. I showed her how to loosen the weeds without tearing the roots of the tulips. She worked slowly, face close to the ground, eyes intent. When a worm surfaced, she lifted it gently and set it in the shade. Care has small gestures before it grows large. A sparrow landed on the fence and watched us. We watched back. The world had the decency to be ordinary again. Inside I made soup. Lily set the spoons and unfolded the napkins with more attention than ceremony. She ate steadily, not as if someone might take the bowl away, but as if the bowl would be there tomorrow. That difference is not easy to teach. It is a roof that does not leak in a hard rain. Later, the caseworker called to confirm the schedule ahead. Her voice was practical, free of drama. She named times, the next check-in, the steps to follow. I wrote them down. We ended the call without wishes or warnings. Process is a kind of mercy when life has been all impulse and fear. In the evening, Lily asked if she could take a bath with the lavender soap. She sank into the water and exhaled like someone setting down a bag she had carried too far. I laid a towel on the heater so it would be warm when she stepped out. I did not speak through the door. Privacy is part of safety. Before bed, she handed me the diary. "You can keep it," she said. I slid it into the cupboard above the stove with the rarely used recipes. It felt right there, no longer a secret, no longer in the cold, but not in the way of daily life. We would reach for it only if truth needed a witness again. Night settled on the house. I left her door a hand's width open and sat in the chair at the top of the stairs with a book I did not read. The air was still. Somewhere outside a siren rose and fell and went on its way. Fear used to sound like that, loud then louder then gone but never gone. Tonight it passed without entering. When I finally lay down, the bed held me without argument. I thought of all the years I spent paying for the hope that love would change its shape if I just fed it enough. Love is not money. It never was. The sentence on my sink had taught me the rest. My money is off the table. So is my silence. I woke before dawn and went to the window. The garden was the color of pewter. Then the light shifted, and one tulip opened a little, then a little more, like a mouth learning to say a first word. Lily came to stand beside me, hair sleep-tangled, bare feet quiet on the floor. "It is starting," she said. "It is," I answered. We made pancakes again. Not because we needed a tradition but because simple food tastes like a promise kept. She laughed when a shell fell into the bowl and fished it out with the tip of the spoon. The laugh surprised her. She looked at me as if asking permission to keep it. I nodded and she did. The messages continued for a while. New ones from old voices, old arguments wearing new clothes. I let them pile up like flyers I had no reason to read. Some things do not need a reply to lose their power. Time covers them the way moss covers stone. I tended the garden. I washed Lily's clothes and hung them to dry where sunlight could find them. I taught her how to fold shirts so the seams meet and lie flat. Order is a language the hands can learn when words are heavy. On the first evening she slept without waking. I sat by the stove with a cup of tea and felt the house breathe with me. Not joy, not yet. Something steadier. A floor that has stopped shifting. A door that clicks when it closes. The small mercy of a night that ends where it should. In the morning I opened the back door and let the clean air in. Lily's laughter moved from the kitchen to the yard and back again. It sounded like water over stones, nothing forced, nothing borrowed. I do not expect apologies. I do not spend hours rehearsing what I would say if they came. Truth has already spoken in a room where it mattered. The rest is quiet work. Meals, school, sleep, the garden asking for water, the porch asking for paint in spring. This is how a house remembers it is a home. The tulips opened. The pancakes browned without burning. The phone stayed on its hook. I stood at the sink and watched Lily chase a sparrow's shadow across the grass. Both of them quick and sure, both of them free. Life is full of crossroads and every decision shapes us. What choice would you have made in this situation? Share it in the comments, I really want to know. Please support this story with a like and subscribe so we can walk through more untold paths together.